After 40 years in the study of well-being, Dr. Dean Shrock retired to the Oregon coast, where he remains an active voice in teaching why love heals. In his writings, he reveals how, through scientific research and extensive observations, it's been proven that love is the key to health, well-being, and peace. We are blessed here today to have as our speaker, Dr. Dean Shrock. Please give him an Ocean Unity welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to bring up my books. I'm going to read these to you today. Okay. I was saying to my friends Lanny and Kamala earlier when we first got here today, how I had just recently taught my wellness series. It's so nice to have Deanna and Barbara there. And I found myself doing a lot more reading. I hadn't taught my wellness series because of the pandemic for at least 4 years. So it was really very enjoyable to me to go back over and review the information and be reminded of a number of things. But also during that class series, a couple of people gave me books to read. And I've read so much and I still read a lot, but I'm not normally that. I'll just sit down and read another book like that. I actually love to read mysteries and thrillers, which I probably read one a week anyhow. So it just made me think much more, which I emphasized in this last class series. The importance of something that is so not just related, it's like almost like an essence of what unity is. And I've said this to you many times before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. Coming here is like speaking to the choir. You remind me of things that are extremely important. Invariably, you talk about our godness, our part of who we are. Actually, is part of everything. But I want to emphasize today the practical, even though it's going to sound too good to be true, part of what it means to be one with everything, to truly recognize and come to terms with who you really are. And I was thinking about this, it almost is maybe more a reminder for me than it is for you, because it's so much a part of what you already do and what you gather to do. And I'm so pleased that you do gather and remind yourself of things that I think are extremely important. And again, I'll go on and explain why. And I was a little tardy in getting out to you this morning this printout, which is an excerpt from a book I've been writing for a number of years. I suspect I'll finish it at some point. But maybe it was 2 years ago. I was speaking with someone through a channeled message, and I was being asked by the wisdom behind this message, what have I been doing recently? And I remember pausing and thinking and saying, nothing. You know, with the pandemic, things really shut down a lot. I hadn't really been writing. I was still teaching a great deal, but just like I didn't feel like I was doing anything. So they suggested, have you thought about writing again? Well, but here's the most important part for me. They said, no more research, no more science. You have to write from within. So whatever's simply coming up and through you, that is going to be the content and the information. And I took it as quite a challenge because I'm real used to citing other evidence. But now it was also very responsible. So in a way, I thought, well, cheat. I'll ask my dreams. Then I can just wake up and hopefully there's information there that I can use. So of all things, that first morning after I asked for information for my new book, I got the word ecstasy. And I was very surprised, partly even going, did I really hear that? Is that really information that's supposed to be for me in writing my book. So I thought, I'll look up in the dictionary and in the thesaurus, what does ecstasy even mean? Maybe that would give me some relevance and, oh yeah, this is why. Well, what I've written in this handout for you today is actually from the chapter Ecstasy in the new book. And it makes a couple of important points, which I always find myself thinking, but I'm not so much sure about you, but maybe it's at least, as Deanna said, I'm going to amp up this message about who you really are. And so when I first heard this idea that we are God, that we are one with everything, you know, whether it's because of my scientific training or my logical mind, you know, as I joke here, this is blasphemy. And I mean, seriously, can you imagine? Now, maybe you grew up in this kind of an environment, but the idea of someone saying you are God, or you walking around, oh, by the way, you know, we might say namaste, think different ways we might acknowledge our divinity within everyone, but you have been kind of off your rocker to say such a thing and think such a thing. Do you understand, honest? Okay, so that's where I hope that I can be helpful to remind you, and maybe because of my scientific background, and say, no, there's more to this than you may even really understand. So if it interests you at all, at some point, look this over just for some thoughts around really around this theme today. Who are you? You know, spiritual awareness is a theme for Unity this month. So I was very pleased to be able to then talk to you more about the idea of who you are. And the last, I think it was from your reading, you said, forgive yourself and others for not knowing, remembering who you are. Yeah, so pardon me, we're going to stop the self-criticism. You have no idea how cool you are. You know, when I think about answering the question, who are you? In my experience with doing this, which I actually used to do, believe it or not, my wellness classes with cancer. And when people first respond to who are you, invariably it's around your physical nature. You know, you're a male or you're a female, you're a mother, you're a father, you may be related to your occupation or something else like that, but it's very much physically oriented, which makes perfect sense. You understand and perceive the world through your physical senses. And so if you can't see it and hear it and taste it and touch it and smell it stuff, you understand from a scientific standpoint, if it's not measurable, it doesn't count. It's honestly beyond the realm of scientific inquiry and therefore actually reduced in its relevance and importance. Well, that's a huge mistake. But I grew up in that and learned that, and I still very much respect it today. But it's to remind you that it's really okay to think outside of science. You know, because so much of what we do, like if you go to the doctor, I mean, even think about this very practically speaking. So you go to the doctor and your doctor says, oh, I had a dream what your diagnosis is. And was given information about what we should do for your treatment. So you can laugh at that, but remember where you are and who you are. So getting this thought now, it's not so much, you know, is I think like hypnosis wrong or surgery wrong. No, it's the surgeon, it's the hypnotist, it's who's ever giving the message. What is the real wisdom behind this? Do they really know what they're talking about? And so believe me, working with so many physicians over the years, the idea that you would self-diagnose and self-treat, this doesn't go well. But it's to remind you that it is very okay, which is not to say ever that I wouldn't advise you to seek medical advice. Truly, if you have symptoms, you would probably do very well to go and have them looked at and consider medical treatment. But from my perspective, the importance is going within and asking your symptoms, which I call benevolent messengers. Okay, so what's this really about? And believe it or not, thank you for getting my attention. They're just there to let you know something's out of balance. And when you rebalance, when you come to terms with your perfection, if that's the only information going into the computer, what has to come out? Now, you may have some other stuff then to overcome all these other old beliefs. But again, it's just such a pleasure and a privilege to be here to remind you of the importance of what you can do in these gatherings and remind yourself of what you can do to be happier and healthier. So, I want to start by reading you something from my book, Doctor's Orders Go Fishing. And I put big bookmarks in there so I could find it easily. I feel like I don't want to slow you down too much, but philosophers, poets, prophets, and metaphysicians throughout time have attempted to explain the nature, character, and causes of being and knowing, the existence of God, and that which is above or beyond the material world. And while science and medicine are focused on the primacy of one's physical being, most people believe that they are also spiritual beings. And even if this can't be measured objectively, in a way science or medicine would require. So here's the key. Every major religion has attempted to explain the ultimate nature of reality and advise people how to live. Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have all taught there is an ultimate source of all being. And each religion has taught that we are one with everything and also taught the golden rule. The ultimate purpose in life is to realize the eternal self within, to know of one's union with God and ways to live in harmony with all of creation. From a spiritual perspective, then, the question, who am I, could be answered, one with God. Now, again, it just keeps going. I'm preaching to the choir here, but hopefully, again, it's a very nice reminder to you from the perspective I have and have grown into about the relevance and importance. And then, okay, I'm going to go to Why Love Heals. So, this is where I talk about the blasphemy part. But you know, those of you who know me well, you know how much I admire the book series Conversations with God. And so I'm going to reference something from Conversations with God. So this is God speaking. Again, it sounds odd to me saying, oh, you can talk to God, right? I joke, we have psychiatric diagnoses for people who think they talk to God. But again, just to try to put this in perspective, it may seem weird to you out of this setting to really talk about this stuff, when I'm going to ask you to remind yourself as often as possible who you really are. So this is what your religions mean when they say you were created in the image and likeness of God. This doesn't mean, as some have suggested, that our physical bodies look alike, although God can adopt whatever physical form God chooses for a particular reason. It does mean that our essence is the same. We are composed of the same stuff. We are the same stuff, with all the same properties and abilities, including the ability to create physical reality out of thin air. And I really want to tell you the truth of that. When I get into some books I read recently, that some people gave to me to read, and I looked especially at some of these special swamis, or by different titles of these masters of spirituality in India in particular, I can tell you without question that anything is possible. Anything is possible. My purpose in creating you, my spiritual offspring, was for me to know myself as God. I have no way to do that save through you. Thus it can be said, and has been said many times, my purpose for you is that you should know yourself as me. Ever feel purposeless, worthless? You have no idea how important you are and what you're actually doing, whether or not you understand it. The promise of God is that you are his son, her offspring, its likeness, his equal. Here's where you get hung up. You can accept his son, offspring, likeness, but you recoil at being called his equal. It is too much to accept, too much bigness, too much wonderment, too much responsibility. For if you are God's equal, that means that nothing is being done to you. All things are created by you. Do you want to truly change your life and take off? Then change your idea about it, about you. Think, speak, and act as the God you are. What do you think about that? Yeah, it's a whole different perspective, to say the very, very least. Okay, then, I want to read you another one. I had a really unique experience. Some of you know this, especially if you've read my book, Why Life Heals. But I've literally had thousands of channeled conversations going back to the 70s, when literally every day for 7 years, I was able to speak through a great friend and mentor, with what we called mentors and master teachers. Anyhow, many years later, I met a woman named Sharon Bauer, and she actually contributed information for this book. And most uniquely in this special experience was that at some point she brought through John the Baptist. Now, there's a part of me that goes, how do you know it's really John the Baptist, right? Or whatever's going on. But with as much as I can tell you, as certainly as I can, is I know that I was speaking with John, and he gave lots of reasons and explanations for how and why that was happening. But at some point, he in fact immediately said to me, because he knew we were going to continue to meet and have these conversations, he said, I always want you to come with questions. And I thought, great. I said, I have a question right now. And it, almost feel like like this little empty guy, talking. But I said, tell me why love heals, which of course he went on to do just like that. And then at some point it occurred to me, because I didn't think of myself as a writer yet, is, I'm writing this book. What would you like me to say? And so in the very, very end, I asked John to kind of conclude the book. What would you really like to say to end the book? And here's what he said. This is what humans are. Humans are always and will always be connected to divine source, the source of love of God. Humans will always be love. Humans must experience emotions, both positive and negative, on this side of the veil in order to grow. They must learn to love the growth that they have gone through, and it is important to go back with awareness and understand where the emotion came from, and then love the experience or synchronicity or coincidence that surrounded the emotion. Accept it as normal and what one is to experience. Love both the negative growth of it as well as the positive. And so that's the important part around our life is about experiencing what love is not, as a way to help us understand more fully what love is. And so I remember when Byron Katie even titled a book, Love What Is. The whole idea, if you really can trust the truth of who you are and what it's all about, is it all serves purpose. Some of it may not even begin to feel like it serves purpose, and you want to punch God in the nose. But if you can, this is the biggest picture, is trust and know the truth of who you are, and that it all serves a very good purpose. So last, if they could just only do this one simple task, to truly learn to love and forgive the negative. And if they could truly love that and go through a daily ritual or a daily awareness or a daily task that brings them back into remembrance of who they are. Dean, this is the greatest message I would want to give. For what it's worth. I thought it was doggone cool. Okay, then this is one of the books that I was given very recently. And I should have known about this much sooner because the author who channeled Emmanuel had some just beautiful, beautiful things to say. So just one thing I picked out, and this is very short. Stop at the very moment the pleasure leaves you and say, what have I forgotten? If you are centered and in truth, the answer will be, oh, I have forgotten that I am God. Then you will take that remembering back into your human experience and you will dance again. And we in spirit will dance with you. I love that ending. So please, I ask you to, your willingness to indulge me to share with you some of the things that I found important in looking at our spiritual awareness and things we can do to inspire and awaken people to the divinity within. Let's see. So now, actually, I'm ready to move into our meditation. Deanna, are we going to have a discussion following, or can we do a discussion now?
Whichever one you want to do.
Okay. Well, there's a part of me that goes, if something's really got your attention and you want to talk about now what's fresh, I would gladly do that before I lead us into a meditation, or certainly come back later and gladly again discuss any part of what I've had to say today.
I can share with you that Dean brings a lot to the table since you drove up from Eugene or from Florence. And he has agreed to speak more often at Ocean Unity, including next month. So please take a calendar, the date is on there, and that will give you plenty of time to develop questions between now and then.
Okay. Well, if you don't have anything you want me to say more about at the moment, then again, I'd like to lead us into meditation. And this comes from the Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East by Baird Spalding. If you're not familiar with this is my second favorite book series. So Conversations with God, and now the Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. Man is beginning to realize that every other man is his brother instead of his enemy. When man does fully realize this, he will see that just as we all came from the one source, all must return to that source or become his brothers in reality. Then he will be in heaven and recognize that heaven means the inner peace and harmony created by man right here on earth. He will then see that he makes his heaven or hell just as he chooses. This heaven has been conceived rightly, but misplaced geographically. He will know that God dwells within him, and not only within him, but in everything about him. Every rock, every tree, every plant, every flower, and every created thing. That God is in the very air he breathes, the water he drinks, the money he spends. That God is the substance of all things. When he breathes God as much as he does air. When he partakes of food, he partakes of God as much as he does of food. And so now what I would like you to do, please, is take your time and at first simply pay attention to your breathing. I want to help you focus your awareness, your attention, by simply being aware that you're breathing in and out. And then, as part of an intuitive exercise to help you make this connection within, I want you to let a color come into your awareness. Don't think about it. Simply become aware of a color that represents the divine within. Take your time. And then as you become aware of that color, now as you breathe in, I want you to breathe in that color, that divine energy, and see it and feel it gently begin to fill your head. See and feel this beautiful energy spread across your scalp, in your face, and fill your brain. And begin to move down your spinal cord and spread throughout your body. And then see and feel this beautiful, loving, divine energy fill your heart. And feel the connection to the divine within you. Take your time. Thank you very much.